Okay, what is happening here?
Where are we?
Glix, give us a situation report.
Currently, we are on the planet Geekery. Be warned, our impossibility drive may cause distortions as we traverse this land. Impending impossibility engaging in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 80 of Comm Talk by Geek Devotions. Distortions in our communication array caused some signals to be unable to be sent out. Being aware of this, Dallas and Celeste prepared a couple of conversations in advance for you that were recorded previously.
Geeks,
Enjoy.
And welcome to Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, a show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. We are so glad that you are here with us today. Now, we are recording this in advance of when we're releasing it.
Yes.
So we're getting in our what do you call that? Not backlog. Is it backlog?
I don't know what you call this.
What would that be? Pre-recorded?
Pre-recorded?
We're getting this ready so that we can make sure that we can ensure that you have content.
So if you're new to Comm Talk, basically, like Celeste said, this is our podcast extension that we're doing. And we have fun conversations, review movies, comic books, video games, blah, blah, blah. Have fun, have a little of maybe some deep conversation about it. But this is kind of our way of also just decompressing.
Yeah, this is the relaxation portion of Geek Devotions. Put on some chill music.
We'll see if we can find some jazz put in the background during this opening part. Hello. Welcome to Comm Talk by Geek Devotions.
Some royalty-free jazz.
So guys, today we are talking about something very special. Glix, what are we talking about today?
Today we will be discussing the Alien franchise.
That's right. We're talking about the Alien franchise. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a big franchise.
Yeah, there's a ton of movies. There's 6.
Yes.
6 movies.
No, there's 6 movies.
6 movies if you don't count AVP and the Predators in the same genre.
Exactly. And for the purpose of this conversation and the history of everything, we're not including those at all because one of the prequels, Prometheus, kind of
blew it out of the water.
Completely and utterly. So if you
ignored it totally.
Exactly. So hey Glix, how are we going to be discussing this film?
We will be examining each film in the established universe's chronological time frame, meaning we will start with Prometheus and end with Alien 4. We will do our best to announce spoiler territory for each film as we progress through this conversation.
Thanks, Glix, for explaining that. We will definitely ensure that we give spoiler warnings. Now, we are going through the series, and we're going to start with the prequels. The reason we're doing this is the way Dallas and I decompress is we pick a series and we binge it.
Pretty much.
Like, if we have a weekend where we're like, we really don't have a lot to do, we take it and we watch an entire movie series.
Yeah, and it's pretty fun. We've done this a couple in the past.
Yeah.
We actually did the Predator series a while
We did.
back.
Did we do a podcast about that?
I don't think we did.
Huh.
But when we did it, we also included the AVP stuff.
I think we did the AVP right beforehand. Mm-hmm. And then like a few weeks later, we had some time. And so we went ahead and binged.
Maybe that's what it was.
The Predator. Because they were not at the same time.
Right. Now, for clarity, because this is one of those movies people are going to be like, the people listening, they're like, okay, Dallas clearly picked this one. Celeste, who picked this series?
That would be me. If anybody knows me, they know that I love sci-fi. And so when we were like, hey, we're going to have some time, let's pick a series to binge, I was like, you know what? I need some science fiction.
Yeah.
We've been watching a lot of Star Wars, and I love it, but it's a lot more science fantasy.
Right.
And I prefer science fiction. A friend of ours tweeted the other day that they get tired of defending the fact that science fiction is different than science fantasy. And it's very true because while, again, love Star Wars to death, it's a different thing. And so I knew that there was not, I'm not at the point yet where I want to watch all of the Star Trek movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? Aliens, I know is sci-fi because I have seen the first movie.
Right.
We watched the original movie while we were dating.
Which is weird because I really think that we watched that one here at some point.
We may have.
And by here, I mean in our house as a married couple.
I think, yeah. I think what happened is that's how we started the AVP stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We watched that one. It was slow. I was like, this is not really what I'm wanting.
Mm-hmm.
And
We thought the first Predator was slow also.
the first Predator wasn't slow. The first Predator was boring. Too much testosterone and sweat. Ugh, take a shower.
Oh man. So basically we watched this because you were kind of feeling sci-fi at the time.
Yeah.
And so it just made sense. We already had 3 of the films.
Yes.
We happened to go to Game Exchange.
That also was a factor in deciding what to do because we already owned some of the movies.
Right. And we were walking around. You found Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yep.
And the idea sparked. And this is where we are at.
Yeah.
We have spent 4 days.
Yes.
And we've watched all these films.
All 6 movies in 4 days. We contemplated skipping the first Alien, but I'm glad we didn't.
I am too. So, again, there's going to be a lot of back history and back lore. We're going to try not to be like in-depth conversation about each film like we have in the past for certain things. We're going to be kind of brief and quick about it. But we are going to kind of world build. And we're going to talk about these. Now, Celeste, when we get to a film that you're like, this is my favorite one out of the whole series, I want you to tell me what that is. And I'm going to do the same.
Okay.
All right. And let's try to explain why. Maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll think about it.
Maybe we'll do that at the end. Let's find out. Let's just go.
Let's
just go and find out what happens.
We're winging it,
Let's do
guys.
it. We're going rogue.
Lord help us all.
All right. So we are now entering spoiler territory for all the films.
All the films.
First one, right off the bat, because I'm saying this, because some people don't realize this is a spoiler for you, Prometheus. How is Prometheus a spoiler for Aliens? Because it's the most not aliens film in the Aliens franchise.
I think at this point everybody realizes that it's a part of it. I know that when it first came to theaters, nobody realized that it was part of the Aliens series,
right?
Like a universe. No one realized it was connected.
They just knew Ridley Scott did it.
Yeah, so they were expecting an Alien-esque type movie. Now, are we waiting until the end to say what our favorites are?
Yeah, let's wait till the end.
Okay.
So this came out in 2012.
Yes.
And the IMDb just reads very plainly, basically, I don't know.
Plainly, I think would be the correct wording.
Following clues to the origin of mankind, a team finds a structure on a distant moon, but they soon realize they are not alone. Dun, dun, dun.
See, so that to me, that intro does not indicate that this is a part of the Aliens.
Right.
Now, I actually saw the preview for this in theaters.
Right.
Well before we had ever watched the Aliens movie.
Mm-hmm.
We were dating at that point, but we were fairly newly dating in 2012. We started dating in 2011. So, I think. Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Maybe. It's been a while. So I saw the preview for this and I did not think that it was part of the Alien series. Mm-hmm. Now, I hadn't seen Alien, but
the preview didn't really give you that.
The preview made it seem more like it was going to be... Okay, so when I first watched it, the preview made me think that they were going... It wasn't space, that they were going into a cave.
Oh, yeah.
Like
it took place on Earth, somewhere deep below?
Yeah. Like, you know how around 2012 time, you had a lot of the end of the world, apocalyptic, you know.
It was kind of that era for this kind of
movies.
Like,
they're going to the center of the Earth. There was I think it was called The Core.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking.
Was that in 2012?
It wasn't, but it was in that same, I don't think it was in 2012.
Same era.
Same era of movies.
Now, this film was done in 2012, and it was done by Ridley Scott. Now, if you know Ridley Scott's films, this falls in line with a lot of his stuff. Like, if you look at his backlog, you definitely get some The Martian feels to it.
Yeah. I haven't seen The Martian.
It was interesting. I saw bits and pieces.
I read the book, though.
Really?
Really slow, but good.
But it has some of those feels. You kind of get a little bit, because he did hit Hannibal Lecter also, or Hannibal. And it has some feels for Hannibal. Did you ever watch that one?
No, I just watched Silence of the Lambs and went, no, I'm good.
Yeah, so it has that feel to it. And Ridley Scott did these first 2 prequels and the first Alien movie. but it had those feels to it. And it makes sense when you know the director. And the basic premise, they find this planet and they start searching. Or this, well, it was a moon, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a moon. And
it was a moon.
They're walking around and they find goo. Like
now, watching it and knowing that it's connected and having seen the other movies, there are a ton of Easter eggs.
Oh, tons.
Like some of them we didn't even realize until we got to the original Alien.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so, I mean, Ridley Scott did a great job of world building.
Yeah.
But it was just so different. You had the engineers who beforehand were just known as the space jockeys.
Yeah. And
you had Weyland, who you never really saw Weyland in the series. You kind of saw him in the third movie, ish. But you never saw him in the original series. And you have Weyland. You have his creation, David, which is an android who is Magneto, but more sentient than probably should be.
Probably.
And
I think he was probably the prototype for all androids. Like Weyland was just playing around and created this thing.
Well, yes and no, because the story that they're giving you, well, no, you don't really get that until the second movie, really.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off on that.
Yeah.
But Weyland does have, we do find out in this film, because again, spoilers for the whole series, for the thing is, Weyland is dying, and he's looking for, he thinks that these engineers hold the secret to life. They created him. Maybe they can keep him alive.
And they said no.
In a drastic manner. And that's really what's going on, is you have this weird discovery of what's happening in the space, world building type aspects. What did you think of the idea of the engineers?
I thought it was fascinating. It does not hold with our beliefs.
Right.
It's very much an alternate world. Now, as a Christian, I look at that and go, okay, I see fallacies in this because of what I believe. But I also have the ability to go, this is a story.
Yeah.
Like, nobody honestly believes that the engineers are real and that they created all of this. Like, that's just not.
It's a fictional world built.
Yes.
That Ridley Scott had put together.
Exactly. So just throwing that out there, because I feel like some people, we know some people who would have problems with that mythology, that mythos being in there.
Right. At the same time, if you know Ridley Scott's films, these aren't themes that he is stranger to.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, very similar, like creation, life. What is life? Are these androids real or are they not? And that was kind of the pathway of David.
Can I just point out there was a point, I don't remember which movie it was from. Maybe I should wait.
Oh.
Wait.
All right. So we're going to, we think that the thing you're going to say
is part of
so we're going to talk
the
about
next
later.
movie discussion. So we're going to insert that discussion later.
So interesting mythos.
Yeah, very interesting mythos.
And again, if you know the director, makes sense.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
It's an intriguing thought process, although they never get into who created the engineers.
No.
So, and they deal with that a little bit with one of the characters. He says that the company doesn't trust him because he's a man of faith. Right. That's the wrong movie.
No, that is.
Is it?
Yeah, that's the same. No, yep, you're right.
I'm confusing those two.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This is part of the problem is the first movie and the second movie blend together real well.
Yes.
It's a continuation of the story, and we watched them all at the same time. So that's why we're having some confusion.
Okay, so I'm going to stop talking.
It's okay. All right, so is Prometheus a good starter to... Well, let's start off. We don't see the alien, like what we know as the alien, at all.
No.
We see the predecessor to it.
Yes. Which
was this real slick, sleek, kind of weird thing happening. What'd you think of that?
It was interesting and intriguing. And at the same time, I'm going, how did we get from A to B? Like, how did we get from this creature that has just come forth and is a dead giveaway that this is in the alien universe to Ripley's alien?
Right.
Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So it left me wanting more.
Right.
So.
And I think that was the point of these, was to lead us to, oh, we know it is. It's meant to lead you up to. Ridley Scott has said that if he has his way, I think he wanted to do 6 of these films.
Yeah.
That he wants it to end right before Ripley. So everything would be explained.
Yes.
But this leads you off like, how did we get there?
Yeah.
Like you and I remember when it happened, you and I were literally sitting there going, where does this fit in? Like, where is this thing? Like,
well, we also were confused about the timeline. We thought that it had year-wise happened after Ripley's movie.
We got some bad information.
Yes. And in timeline-wise, it happens, what, about 20, 30 years before?
Yeah, ish. I think so. About 20, 30 years before Ripley. Yeah. So, is this a good film?
I think so.
Do you recommend it?
I do. I do not recommend it for small children or anyone who does not handle it. It has elements of horror to it. It is not as scary as some movies, but if you are just like a person who cannot handle any scary movie, I don't recommend it for you.
Absolutely.
Like, if you can't handle Stranger Things, you cannot handle Prometheus.
This is accurate. Okay, so I'm kind of in the same boat. I enjoyed the film. It was good. It wasn't as horror-esque as because I'm not a huge horror fan.
No, neither of us are.
And when I first saw the previews hyped up the fear factor.
Yes.
And it was intense, but it was never a fear thing for me. It was just like there was a thriller, intense moments, but it wasn't necessarily scary. There's some jump scares.
Yeah, there's a couple jump scares.
There was some suspense.
There's not even, though, as many jump scares as there are in later movies.
Not really. So I can recommend this film too. This was a good film. It was interesting. It was an interesting premise.
Yeah.
So I think, is that all we need to talk about this?
I think we're good.
All right. Glix, what's the next film we're talking about?
We will now be discussing 2017's Alien Covenant.
All right. As Glix said, we're talking about 2017's Alien Covenant. Now, the IMDb of this one reads, the crew of the colony ship bound for a remote planet discover an uncharted paradise with a threat beyond their imagination and must attempt a harrowing escape. Escape. All right. So let's talk about this crazy film right here.
Okay. So this one is the one that, to me, that we cut earlier from the twice, because it's the one at one point, the android, because there's 2 androids. There is, David is in this one.
Right. Which, did we say that David was an android? David was an android. And after we'll review the tape later. But yeah.
I think we said that.
Yeah.
David is in this, and then there's another android who looks exactly like him, which, can we talk about the fact that Michael Fassbender was talking to himself?
Yes. In different voices, really.
Really,
I mean,
interesting.
Different tones,
have
different
a whole new respect for him as an actor. But at one point, somebody asks one of them, it's all Magneto's face, but one of them, do you dream? And I think it's funny because Ridley Scott directed Blade Runner, which was originally called Do Electric Sheep, or Do Androids Count Electric Sheep?
No, do Electric Sheep dream?
No.
Sheep? I don't know.
It's Does Androids Count Electric Sheep, because they did a series under it, a different... Okay. Hang on.
We're going to fact check that here in a sec, or right now. But it was interesting because, again, if you know Ridley Scott's filmography, it makes sense. It feels like a Ridley Scott film. And I really enjoy his films. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And that is what Blade Runner is based off of. So I thought that was an interesting nod. Right. It was a very interesting nod. And this whole film, I feel like, was a good almost parallel to Aliens in some aspects. And I'll get into that when we talk about Aliens, which is the second one. Because I'm not necessarily seeing that, so I'm intrigued by your... By my analysis? Yeah. Remind me of that when we get there. There's some... I can definitely see, again, some Easter eggs, but I'm not sure it parallels. I'll explain it when we get there. Okay. So in this one, we have Walter as the ship android. They're landing on this planet. Did this film seem more fast-paced to you than the first one? Because I feel like the
Yes.
first one was kind of a slower pace.
Yes. It moved faster. Story got going quicker. There was instant, and again, we've hit spoilers for the second movie.
Right.
Oops. Perhaps we should have done the spoiler warning sooner.
Oh, we did. Everyone knows that. We said at the beginning. Every film's going to be spoiled.
That's true. But I mean, as soon as crap starts hitting the fan and you're taking the time to go, holy crap, it's the same android, which it's not. He just looks alike.
Right.
Because it's the same actor. And he wakes up the crew, you instantly have panic.
Yeah.
There's instantly problems.
Yeah.
Like,
right off the bat.
as soon as you have like maybe 5-10 minutes of calm, and then everything goes everywhere.
Exactly. And so I kind of appreciate the faster pace of it. And especially in contrast to the original ones, which again we'll talk about later. It was a faster paced film. They land, the crew's woken up and early.
Yes.
Because of a disaster or something has taken place. And by chance, by absolute chance, they're in range to pick up a signal from a particular android. And I feel like we should have explained this. The ending of the first film, of Prometheus, David and Dr. Shaw locate another one of the engineer ships, and they take off to search for the home world
of the engineers.
Right. And so that's where they're going. That's where they're heading off to. So it just so happens when they come out, they're picking up a signal of a song, Country Road. Is that the name of the song?
Yeah. John Denver.
Yeah. And they're like, this is strange, from a planet that no humans ever been to.
A planet that when they were surveying for the place to colonize, they did not come up.
Right. And
the fact that it didn't come up makes me think things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like somehow he was doing something with it?
No. Like, I think the company was hiding it.
Maybe simply because we'll talk about it when we get to end this one. Because but possibly
because of what we know from watching special features.
Right.
That's what makes me think that.
I can see where you're going with that, but I think we're jumping the gun on it a little bit.
Okay.
But so they land on the planet, and it looks great. It looks fantastic. Now that they're already down a couple people. The captain's dead.
Yeah. Because of the crap hitting the fan at the very beginning.
You have the it's not assistant captain, but second in command taking over.
Yes.
And he's got no confidence in himself.
And he is the one that he said the phrase, the company didn't think I was fit to lead because I'm a man of faith.
Right.
And I think it's interesting because later somebody goes, even knowing all of this, you still believe?
Right.
And he goes, well, yes, because who created them? Oh, no, that was the girl from the first movie.
It was the girl from the first movie.
But the two statements collided so well. He's a man of faith, but she still has faith even after learning that there's engineers, because who created the engineers?
Exactly. So, but this captain, because he's been criticized of his faith.
Yeah.
He has very little self-confidence because he's afraid of being called a fanatic.
Yes.
And as a result, he's a little over-demanding.
Yes.
Which I feel like can happen when somebody's like, they've had their confidence just shot in the face for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they're put in a position and they have to have a guard up to protect themselves.
Yeah. Later, he kind of drops that guard
a
little bit, and he is a much nicer guy. Like when he stops trying to be like the captain who died.
Yeah.
And starts becoming himself. He is a more likable character.
Exactly. So they land on this planet and they find the engineer ship. And no, they don't. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. They do not find the ship. They find wheat, and they're walking to the beacon.
Right, which was in the ship.
Yes, but
So they find the ship.
The ship was in a town, though.
No, that was the first movie.
No.
This is how confused we are.
No.
Because...
No, that was not the first movie because the town is the engineer's town.
No.
Yes.
Yes. No. They find the ship. Everything goes to crap. And then David shows up and leads them to the town.
Yes.
All right.
I think that's what happened.
Yes.
I don't remember the ship being...
It was super brief.
It
was a
was.
brief one. They get to the ship and then you didn't see much of it. They go down, and in the midst of them dealing with the ship,
There was some going back and forth. Maybe that's what's confusing me.
yeah. Again, there was so much happening in this first 20 minutes of the film. There was a lot that happened. This was a fast-paced film.
Yeah.
That led into, like, it felt short.
Yeah, it
Like, how
did.
long was this movie?
I don't know, but it felt like... Now, we also watched this one in the afternoon, whereas we watched Prometheus in the evening, in the later
evening. It was a 2-hour
evening.
film, but it felt quick.
Yeah, it did. So Prometheus felt quicker than 2 hours.
I don't know, but it was good pacing. There's just a lot happening.
Yeah.
But what you see is the black stuff we discover has kind of permeated throughout all nature.
Yes.
And it's taking on different forms.
There's these little pods.
Right. They release little, I don't know what you call it.
Spores.
Spores. There you go. That's my sound effect clearly indicated for our listeners.
Yes.
And that's what's infecting people. And then, like, instead of having the face hugger, the spores cause them to give birth to white aliens. Is that what it is? They're like this weird beige white color. Not quite the aliens we know, but they were the aliens.
Yeah, it was closer to the alien than we know than at the end of Prometheus was.
Yes, I would agree to that. But still, it was a very different process.
Yeah.
And everything goes to crap.
Still had the popping out of the chest.
Yes, you did that.
The chest popping out was the same.
So all that happens, and then David shows up out of nowhere.
To which Walter's going, what?
Saves them, presumably. And he's like, hang out here. Now, they get to the city, because you explain the city. Describe the city for people.
The city was kind of Grecian. Like, there was a wall, and then there was all this open space. But in the open space, there's all of these forms of humanoid creatures that have been turned to black ash.
And in terrified moment, like...
Yeah, like they are scared and reaching
right
for the inside. Like you can tell they were all heading the same direction. They were heading to where David is leading them.
Sort of. There was some that was leading to trying to get to the gate, and then there was some trying to climb up to what was kind of like this big dome-shaped building in the middle of the area.
It looked like, now I do not watch zombie movies. Let me preface it with that. But it looked like a scene from World War Z that I've seen where everyone's climbing on each other to get to the top of a wall.
Right.
I don't know if those were humans or zombies or what, but
those were zombies.
The zombies were climbing on each other to get to the top of the wall. And so it kind of gave you that type of feels, like these people were so concerned with getting in.
Right.
Whatever they were scared of was so bad that they were not taking into account the people around them.
Yeah. That was pretty much what was happening there. So it's a dark scene.
Yeah.
It was a dark movie. Like the first movie was dark to a degree, but this was like the atmosphere was dark. It was raining all the time.
Yes.
And, but they get inside this place and they try to communicate because they gotta get home.
When it wasn't raining, it was bad.
Right. And this is where we learn a little bit about the metamorphosis of these aliens.
Yes.
Because David has been doing some interesting things with his time. David has been experimenting with the black goo, and if you have the Blu-ray, there is a short film that takes place on it where it's basically David's notes that he sends off to the Whaling Corporation, and he explains how he's been experimenting on these things to create a new species.
Which makes a lot of sense now looking at it, because there is an interaction between David and Walter where Walter is looking at a flute and David's going, well, you can't create even a simple tune. And he goes, no, they took out the ability to create out of us. If Wayland was getting the transmissions and they knew that David was doing this crap, then it made sense for them to go, oh, this is a bad idea. We need to get this out of the rest of the androids.
Well, see, that's the thing is, and this is where the timelines are getting really weird, mixed up for us. Those transmissions didn't happen until after the end of this movie. If what we were listening to, because Dave was talking about, at the end of that transmission, he talks about the ending of the movie.
There were multiple transmissions.
Well, that's true. There was. But he didn't have a way to send... Well, I guess he kind of did.
He had a way to send the signal. It just is a matter of how long it took to...
Right. So, but he also put out a fact in this is that he had disdain for humanity.
Yeah.
And that's the question. Like, a lot of people are like, where do these aliens come from? What is their purpose? And it seems like David is creating these aliens to... They're his creation... But because he's tired of humanity, he hates humanity as a whole. It's because of his creator. He has angst against all of humanity, and he wants to wipe it out with what he calls the perfect species.
Yeah. He talks about every species needing a wolf and a sheep, and needing a predator and a prey.
Right. So Walter isn't having any of this.
Walter says no.
Because he's built to protect humans. And so all of it comes to a head, and they're trying to escape. And there's a big fight between Walter and David. And then inside the, what do you call it, necropolis, I think is what we called it?
Yeah.
And so,
dying city.
Right. And so the mothership drops a little cargo ship for everyone to get on and get off the planet to run away, like you do when you're being chased by aliens. And these aliens... They're closer to what we know. Yes. They're still a little off.
They're still a little off, but at the same time, I feel like they had more unrefined power.
Right. These were the first aliens that we saw come from eggs.
Yes.
Because he actually built the ones in the eggs himself. Yes. So he does this.
Now we don't realize that till the end.
Towards the end of the movie, yeah. So he does this, and they're running off. There's a big fight. This is where we discover the acid blood. Yeah. And just a few other aspects of it. What did you like about this film?
I liked that it was fast-paced. I liked that it explained Prometheus. I enjoyed the main character, the main female. I also liked that I liked Walter. Like, I like the idea of androids. It terrifies me in real life because I feel like it's just a bad idea. There's too many ways that this could go wrong.
We've seen all those movies.
We know all the bad ways, but I really enjoy when somebody does it and goes, hey, it doesn't have to be bad. Like Data. Yeah. So, like, because he was giving me the Data vibes.
I can see that.
I appreciated his character.
So, it was a fun movie. It was fast-paced. It was interesting. I think it did a better job world building than the first movie. Yes. Well, not world building. I think the first movie world built. This one started the more of the bridge.
Yes. The first movie went, this is what's going on. And then the second movie went, this is how it connects to what we already know.
Right. And so when it all comes to head, they save the day, they run off. I'm trying not to give too much because someone wants to watch this. Yeah. But the major spoiler that we have to talk about is at the very end when they've saved the day. Yeah. The colonists are still there because the colonists are on hypersleep.
And have no idea that any of this has happened.
Not the slightest idea. So the two remaining crew members and Walter are on the thing. They put the one crew member to sleep. And the new captain, who was the original captain's wife.
Yes. She was like third in the chain of command.
Right. Walter's sealing her up. And she has a revelation from a question that he's not able to answer. This is not Walter.
Yeah. This is David, which you and I had already suspected.
Right.
Like, we were like, okay, because at one point Walter loses a hand to the acid blood. We're like, which hand is gone?
Right.
Like, what, are we sure? And like everything, it was too right.
Right.
It fit too well for it to not be.
The fact that we never saw David, or a hint of David.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't sit right in what I know how a film would play out. Like, there's certain tropes you see in films.
Yeah.
And I'm going, if David's not dead, he should pop up again.
And we never saw David die.
Exactly. And what comes up is David has taken Walter's place.
Yes.
He's put everyone to sleep. He goes to this like filing cabinet of frozen embryos, and he coughs up embryos of the facehuggers.
In like this Jello type stuff.
And he seals them up and he's walking off. Now, this is where it gets interesting, where you have to watch the special feature.
Yeah.
Because in it, he's talking about, he says that the only thing he has yet to perfect is the queen.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
a way for the aliens to propagate themselves.
Right. To date, he's kind of manually done everything. And he says, I need a way for the queen for them to grow without him. And through the course of the conversation, you realize that he has fallen in love with Shaw from the first movie, even though he uses her as basically experiment food.
Yeah. At one point, he says something about, I regret having to salvage her for parts. I'm like, holy crap, she's not parts, she's a human.
Right.
But in his mind.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, he regrets that because she didn't appreciate what he had done, how he wiped out the entire planet.
Yeah.
Like, he dropped the black pathogen that started this whole stuff on the entire planet and wiped out all the engineers.
Which is why you had the people running for the doors and the gate.
So, kind of in this conversation here, can we recommend this film?
I would say that if you're going to watch Prometheus, you need to watch Alien Covenant.
Yeah. It's a good story.
I enjoy it.
It world builds.
You cannot watch it separate from Prometheus.
You can't. It has to be watched with Prometheus.
Because if not, you don't understand who David is.
At all. Like, there's so much. It's sad because you need all that.
Yeah.
And they don't go into a lot of conversation about what happened in Prometheus.
No, they don't. But at the same time, without the knowledge of what's happened in Prometheus, you don't understand what's happening.
Exactly.
You need that base to appreciate Covenant.
Exactly.
Now, I would definitely recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
But
so we like it. We like the film. It's a good film.
Mm-hmm.
It's fast paced. It's
very
more
bloody.
It's a little bloodier. Yeah.
It's a little bloodier. Less goo.
Yes.
More blood.
Yeah. It's better than Alien 3, which we're going to talk about later. So that's our review on Alien Covenant and Prometheus. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. All right, so y'all check out this ad.
Welcome to Victims and Villains. This is the channel where we talk nerd, we talk hope, and we speak nothing else. I'm your host, Captain Nostalgia, and I'm so glad that you're here to join us.
Victims and Villains is a podcast and YouTube channel that marries pop culture and suicide prevention, producing content with the intent to let people know that there is hope and that there is a better way, and that each and every listener has value and worth.
Listen to Victims and Villains on your favorite podcast catcher or on YouTube by searching for Victims and Villains. Also, check out their website, victimsandvillains.net.
All right, and we're back. I want to encourage you guys, please check out Victims and Villains. Fantastic podcast. Much better than our podcast.
Much better. They're much more regular than we are.
Much more regular.
Although we're trying.
We're doing our best.
Who knows? Maybe by the time we release this one, we will be more regular.
All right, so we're going to time jump now. Awkwardly, we're time jumping into the past and into the future at the same time.
Right?
Enter 1979's Alien. Now, the IMDb of this says, after a space merchant vessel receives an unknown transmission as a distress call, one of the crew is attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that this life cycle has merely begun. Okay. 1979. This is A Brave New World.
Special time.
This is the 70s. This is Ridley Scott.
This is the 70s and end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s.
Right. So, like, even if you're watching this on DVD like we were, you have this beautiful grain that adds
to the
effect of everything. Now, again, like I said, this is the most Ridley Scott film.
Yeah.
Like, when you think Ridley Scott, you think Blade Runner, you think Alien.
I forget that he did Blade Runner.
But they blend together like this. There's a tone, there's a feel.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very intrigued getting into this trilogy because everyone has such a different director, and those directors make monumental differences in how the feel and the tone of the story goes. Mm-hmm. So Ridley Scott did this film, and enter the heroine who is like, she's at the top of everyone's kick butt woman of the year movie list.
Yeah.
Ripley, right?
Ironically, not from this movie though.
Yes and no.
When they reference her kicking butt, it's usually the next movie we're going to talk about.
Yes, usually. But, I mean, she does quite a bit in this. And, again, the basic storyline, and we're going to try to get through this a little quicker because there's so much here. And I just realized this is a 40-minute podcast.
Oh, good Lord. We're so sorry.
So, but basically, they land on this planet, like the IMDb says, facehugger. There's so much.
John Hurt becomes a dragon.
Hurt's in this. There's so much pop culture in this.
There is.
In the second movie also, that people just, even in the third movie, no, the second movie, like, it's just part of our life. It's part of our culture.
You just know it. It's almost hard to spot it as being where things started because it's become so ingrained in the culture that you can't not see it.
Right.
Like, it's just there. And you're like, oh, it's there. But you have to keep in mind that this is where it started.
Exactly.
Like, when the alien runs across the table, I'm picturing, I don't even remember what movie it is, but there's a movie where they're at a bar and
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs? Is that Spaceballs?
Yes.
Okay, so Spaceballs, it pops out and starts going, hello, my honey, hello, my darling, hello, my Clementine.
And John Hurt's in it again, and he goes, oh no, not again. Like, it was perfect. Perfect.
I can't not see that scene when watching Aliens, and it's a very different movie. It's a very different movie.
Like, it's been spoofed in so many different ways. Across, like, this started a change, a mindset of space and aliens and like, and classified horror, yes.
Yeah.
But it's still more sci-fi.
And I think it even changed horror to an extent. Now, I don't know a lot of horror, but I have heard that this changed how they do horror movies.
I can see that.
Because before this, it was kind of the, Frankenstein and all that.
Well, you had some interesting stuff back in the 70s. You had
Critters
as
doesn't
far
count.
as it probably changed the way people viewed monster movies.
Oh, well, that may be a thing. That may be it.
There was a lot of horror back then, but still to say, but it changed the way people viewed monster movies.
Yeah. In
a fundamental way. And this, like, it had that the suspense.
Yeah.
Like, it kept you on the edge of your seat. And I'm going to geek out just on the fundamentals of it. There's no music.
Yeah.
Except for just a tiny amount.
Which was not and still isn't common. Like, that's just not how you do things. You have music going.
Like, Ridley Scott directing with his team, they did a great job of building a scene. And again, you have a lot of elements going on. You have, it's a dark film already.
Yeah.
You have them people mostly confined to tight spaces. You have people confined to tight, dark spaces. Mm-hmm. Gritty.
It had to be a fairly cheap movie to make because they didn't have a ton of set.
Well, not a ton, but there was a.
But then they blew all the set up.
Like, there's a lot that went into this film.
Oh yeah.
And then to go in there and go, there's no music. All you have is the ambiance of the ship running. Mm-hmm. That brings the audience into the film in a way I feel like most hadn't done before. you to this day you have like a scoring that takes place where now you have more of a symphony going in and doing some stuff, and then you like the da 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 da, just stuff happening. This just silence until you get to certain points.
Yeah.
But then even still like so there's a scene where they're in the infamous crawling through the ductwork with the beeper going, and they've got the flamethrower again, spooked 1,000 times, right? Even still, like they have a small underbed, but the driving thrust that gets your heart pounding is the use of the sonar.
Yeah.
Because you hear the beep 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 beep. Like,
and then when it picks up, you're like, oh God.
Exactly. You and the audience are going, oh man, we know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But we're on the edge of our seat because it's structured so beautifully.
Yeah. And we even said that. Like I was like, at one point I said, why am I so anxious? I know she is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. But they hold on to you so much. Like, I think this was a great film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of those that it's in film school people's curriculum.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those that it's going to be considered a classic for forever. The use of the suit was fantastically done. I think, even though I think it's gross, like there's certain scenes in all of these movies where I'm like, ooh, I'm not going to eat anything right now because that's nasty. Like, it's not the blood. The blood, as long as it doesn't go in mouths, really doesn't bother me.
Right.
I have a thing about blood being in mouths, makes vampire movies hard to watch. But just the goo. But if you don't have the goo, then it's nothing more than a rubber suit. So the genius of giving it that slick, wet, sticky look to make it look more natural.
Right. It was just beautifully put together. I want to make a recommendation. And we're not going to go too deep into the film because we're going to get out of it pretty quickly because we have 3 more films to review here in a second.
Yes.
But if you want a deep, intense review on this, like a really good conversation, I want to encourage you guys to check out our friends at Retro Rewind Podcast.
Did they do Alien?
They did. So it was episode 183. So if you go to Retro Rewind Podcast, I think you just type in Retro Rewind Podcast /183. I don't know. Just go find their stuff. They had a guy named Mike Fraley. I don't know who that is, but sounds interesting guy. And then you had Paul and Francisco. And they had a really great conversation.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't know, they rate films classic, nostalgic, or tragic. And so classic means you want to watch it again over and over again. It's a great film. Revisit it. Nostalgia is like, if you watch as a kid, it's great. But if you don't want to spoil your memories of it, don't watch it again. And tragic is like, please just stop.
Just stop.
Just leave it alone.
If you have good memories, let them stay in the past.
I'm not going to give you guys the final rating that they gave it, but I am going to say it was not rated tragic. Okay? So I want to encourage you guys to go check it out.
Well, there were no disobedient children or talking animals,
there were no
so
talking
Francisco will like it.
Shots fired.
It's the truth.
It is the truth. So go check that out. But so we need to talk about the link up from the previous movie because this is where there's some contention.
Yeah.
Is how do we get from Covenant to this? And the aspect that I'm running into is the location. Now, for those who don't know, this one takes place on planet LV-426. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, the first movie, Prometheus, takes place on LV-422,
yes,
which is the same moon that takes place, that's rotating around the thing.
So it's within the same system.
Right. But this is where we have some differences. LV-422, you have the engineer's ship that's crashed, and you have these canisters of the goo. This is not the refined David Special aliens.
Yes.
LV-426, you have another crashed Covenant, or not Covenant, that's a different franchise, engineer ship with the engineer there, dead this time dead in the seat. However, at the same time, you find out that I'm sorry, they don't have a ship in the first one, but in this one they do.
No, they have a ship in the first one.
They do have the ship. You're right. Because it's underground.
Yeah.
But there's eggs. Somehow there's eggs here. And we also discover in the beginning of the film that Ripley has transcoded this beacon because they go there because they're a mining company. They wake up early for whatever reason. They wake up early.
Mm-hmm. Which is very similar to Covenant.
But for different reasons. Covenant was an accident. This one, intentionally, they woke them up early and stopped them because they received a transmission they had to inspect. Right, so we agree.
Yes.
So it was, they woke up
yes.
On purpose because they received a signal.
Yes.
And they're suddenly mandated to check it out.
Yeah. Like it was earlier than what they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
But
nowhere close to Earth.
But Mother woke them up early.
Right. And so they go and check the planet out. And this is where it all happens. But there they find eggs. Mm-hmm. But the signal they found, Ripley figures out they wanted to stay away from the ship.
But she actually found it after they were already there.
Exactly. So this is where we're like, okay, why? Because what we discovered in the first few films is that the engineers created the black goo and they were on track to go to Earth. We didn't talk about this earlier, to destroy the humans.
Yes.
Now we have the ship going, don't come here. This is a warning. Do not come and open this thing.
I have a theory.
Okay.
My theory is that there was a engineer who was not on planet when David arrived. Arrived after, at some point, and discovered the eggs. Realized that David had taken the goo and changed it. So he took it back to the planet where the engineers originally were because it was like a storing facility for the goo. So he went, this is a new weapon. Let me take this to our weapons hold. And that is what happened. And then he crashed.
I can see that.
So that is my theory.
So he took the weapon.
He took the eggs, realizing they were a weapon. Now, why he didn't take David?
Do you think but why do you want them to stay away?
Because the alien had manifested in him.
So he knew. So he was trying to warn people not to use the weapons.
Yes, he was trying to get the weapons back to the weapons store, knowing that the rest of his race was gone, and then he knew he was infected, so he was trying to get there, and then crashed when the chest burst. This is my theory.
It's a plausible theory. I think that it was a remorseful engineer that was like, nope, we can't do this. It's a bad day.
Yeah,
and so. Yeah, that works. I think that checks in my mindset. I'm curious to see what Ridley Scott does.
Their names are so familiar.
Right. So
similar.
That's the storyline we have. Now we have another android who's evil. And this is where some stuff gets in, because you're like, why is there this directive where it is priority to bring back this alien life? Like, they are dead set on bringing back this alien life. Well, when you add in the facts, again, this is Ridley Scott back. Ridley Scott wrote Alien. And he's been writing Prometheus and all sorts of stuff.
He's retconning it.
But it makes sense.
It does.
Wayland Industries have picked up, like, there's this thing here, and David has made it sound like it's something special.
Yes.
That's neat, that needs to be looked at. And so they're like, we want that.
We want to see what he has gotten. We've got all this data.
Right.
We need to see the specimen.
Especially, and I thought about this later, when you look at it from a point of view, David is their property.
So technically the aliens are their property.
So they want their property.
Yeah. So
you have all this going to play. The crew's expendable, and that's where the whole thing goes really to junk. Because on first you're like, why is the chief medical officer such an idiot? Oh, because he's actually a robot and he's following directives from his corporation.
And you already have the distrust because he's only been with them for 2 days.
2 days.
Before they went into hypersleep.
Right. Which is interesting. Which, if I'd watched this beforehand and not watched I have watched stuff, I never thought about it. But if I really tried to think about it, like, it didn't make sense for, like, why are we adding in this detail that he switched out 2 days beforehand?
Yeah.
Okay, he's a robot. That's cool. But, like, why would they do that? Like, would already put a person on there, wouldn't they? No. They had a plan. They're like, oh, we know where you're going. We know where you're going to be intersecting with. We're going to make you stop there.
Yeah. And we're going to put somebody there who's going to be have to follow our directive.
Exactly.
Because it's an android.
Right.
It has to be programmed that way.
I think that they were originally going to try to make them stop at LV22.
And get it from there.
Go to the source. But they stopped at LV26 because
of the signal
they got.
It would make sense because they were in that area.
Exactly. All right. So Alien, is it good?
Yes.
Should people watch it?
Yes. It's slow.
It is slow.
It is very slow. It's a 2-hour movie. For the first hour and a half, it's pretty slow.
You're right.
So if you can't handle that, then
you need to not. Drink coffee.
Yeah.
But it's suspenseful. Like after you get past the first half and it picks up.
Yeah.
You
It
are on the
starts
edge.
to pick up at the hour mark.
Yeah.
But it's a slow build.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is why you're so invested in it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to say yes also.
Yeah.
This is a good film. You need to watch it. It is classified horror. Again, it's a sci-fi horror, but it's more sci-fi action than just, So, yeah, I think it's a great film.
Attention, Dallas and Celeste, the signal is growing weak, and to be honest, you're taking too long. We will need to end this transmission soon and pick up to this discussion later.
That sounds like a great idea, Glix. We need to go get some tacos from that taco machine.
Word, because Godzilla's in the back and he's getting a little angry again.
Oh, not again.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for checking out the first half of our review of the Alien franchise. We'd love to hear from you guys if you like it, don't like it. What were your thoughts on Alien Covenant, on Alien, on Prometheus? Send us some feedback. Let us know what your thoughts are. Do us a favor and let people know. Share this out. Hopefully by this time we fixed the issue with Google Play.
Yeah.
Oh, not Google Play, Google Podcasts.
Yes.
We're still working on that out. So for those of you who don't know, we've changed podcast hosts. So it's been a little different.
They may know that by now, depending on when we release this.
Indeed. So, but hey, check out all of our stuff. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look for Geek Devotions. Celeste, is there anything we need to announce?
Probably not. Probably there is, but because again, we're not sure when we're dropping this.
Right.
Don't know what to say.
All right.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Comm Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. Until next time, stay devoted.
Peace and love.